Welcome to Early Intervention Matters, the podcast that helps parents, teachers, and health professionals understand the diagnosis, treatment, care, and support of children with autism, ADHD, Tourette's, and other neurodevelopmental challenges. Your host, Dr. Inyang Takon, is a consultant neurodevelopment pediatrician, and she will provide insight through interviews, answering questions, and breaking down complicated topics. By sharing stories from parents and professionals in the field, we hope to make sense of what can be an overwhelming topic. Early intervention is crucial with children with developmental difficulties. Yes, early intervention matters. And now, here's your host, Dr. Inyang Takon.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. You're welcome to another edition of Early Intervention Matters. Hope you've all had a good week. Welcome back to the show. So, Early Intervention Matters podcast is an educational podcast, a public awareness podcast for providing information about neurodiversity to families, to the public and other professionals. And over the last year, we've had a lot of content covering several aspects of neurodiversity. And today, I'm really pleased to have a very, very important guest on my show. Her name is Emma Graham, and we promise you this is going to be an eye-opening session. So I'd like to introduce Emma Graham. Emma will say hello, and then she's
Hello.
going. Hello, Emma. Lovely to
Hi.
have you.
Thank you
And
for having me.
yeah, thank you for sparing your evening to do this session with us. Thank you so much.
Oh, of course.
So, Emma, I've known Emma for over 17 years, but one thing is we're both passionate um, about children's development, children's well-being, and usually forms part of our discussions. Emma is a librarian, and she's going to tell us a bit more about her role and herself, and then we'll talk about how she became interested in becoming a librarian. So, Emma, please introduce yourself to the to our audience.
Okay, so I'm a learning and information centre manager and librarian, and I suppose I need to explain where my journey began. And I think I should probably go back to when I was a child. So I had quite a difficult and disruptive home life, including moving around a lot, and I actually went to 11 different schools, which is quite considerable, and that made things quite difficult for me. So I used to escape with books. And reading let me escape into other worlds when I felt that my own world was really unsettled. So it was both calming and comforting, and I could just be in another place. And then the reading continued throughout my childhood and my teens. And then I went on to study at university. So I studied at University College London, and they have an amazing library. And I used to go there every day, surrounded by books, and I used to study, and it was just an absolutely perfect place for me, calm and restful, and be able to also be with my friends there was the perfect place. But it wasn't until much later, and when my own children were much older, that I saw a job advertised at their school for a librarian, and I thought I'd absolutely love to do that. So I had a completely different career before then. I'd previously worked for a charity and as an analyst at a management consultancy. So this was entirely different, but it felt right somehow. So as I said, books were such a big part of my childhood, and they made me feel so much better. And especially when I went to libraries or I was at home and in my room, I felt safe as well. And I could just be myself. Realized that I wanted to create that same feeling for other young people. So becoming a school librarian, meant that I could share my love for reading and also support students who might need that space as much as I once did. So it felt like a way to give something meaningful back.
What an incredible journey! It's just interesting to see how your career has evolved.
Yes, I don't think you knew.
I never knew all
Those
this bit.
things.
I never knew all this bit, but I think one thing that has come out of that is how being able to get yourself into the world of the books and the different stories that was presented, how that helped you to actually feel better and be away from the chaos that you said was around you. I think sometimes these days we lose that, isn't it? Because the reading culture has changed from
Definitely.
years ago compared to now, where everything is fast paced. People are reading things in bite sizes and just looking at the screens and going from one screen to the another screen, another screen. It's just a different world. And I really wish we could get back to that world that you described, because
I know. If only. I do try at school. Fortunately, the school that I work in, they're very strict about mobile phones. So they're very strictly sanctioned. So we don't actually see the mobile phones being used at all at school. They are probably in some places, but I don't see it. They're not available in the library. So my students still read proper books.
yeah,
Um, really nice to keep it.
I think
That
it's so important. I think it's so
yeah.
important. When I am in clinic doing my work and I see children just glued to the screens, they're almost like, if you take the screens away from them, some of them have meltdowns, they get
Oh
really
wow.
upset.
Yeah.
And you just sometimes think, wouldn't it be nice to actually have a book that they're reading and enjoying rather than having the screens that they become really glued to? So that's a great story. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, as a librarian, I mean, my thoughts about a librarian growing up and even when I went to uni was, you know, somebody I want to borrow books, I go there, look for books, get the librarian to do that, check me out, remind
Yeah.
me when I haven't brought my books on time, send me notices, and make sure the books are well arranged at the end of the days. That's my thoughts about a librarian. So can you tell me about your day-to-day work?
Right. So what you just said is totally what I do as well. So I organize the library. So I do put books on shelves. That is part of the day job. And actually, I was looking at my job description out of interest. I haven't looked at it for a while. And so, what I'm technically meant to be doing, I have to obviously do what I just said with organizing the shelves, checking out books. We have library management system that we use. So I check the books in and out on that. And I obviously update the database on there. So this is all part of what I'm meant to do. That's it in theory. And also I help teachers out with library lessons. Or I actually do them myself, depending on whether or not the teacher's there. So this is all part and parcel of it. But one thing that was not on the job description was student wellbeing and support. And so in my other job as a librarian, that had come out quite a lot. I had supported students. Students, not just neurodiverse students, lots of people coming in and wanting to chat. So I expected that, but this time at my new school, not to the extent that I'm now exposed to it. So well-being has become a massive, massive part of my job. And this is, of course, what we were talking about 10
Yeah.
days ago, how different it is. And you were quite surprised, weren't you?
I was very
Yeah,
surprised.
you do. So yes, there's the books, but I have students coming in at break times, at lunch times, and I get the same crowd every time. And they're people who do not want to be in the playground or with huge groups of people. They want to come to the library. It's, I suppose, not like a traditional library anymore where it's absolutely silent. It's more of a holistic environment. So we've got things going on like chess and board games, card games. So, there is that volume there still, but it's not nearly as bad as the playground or the canteen. It's, is at a lower level. And a lot of students with acute anxiety like to come in and kind of regulate themselves and talk to me about what they've been doing, how their last lesson went, if there's anything going on in their lives. I have one student who has a skin condition and they don't like going outside a lot. I get the feeling it's implied that they don't want to be bullied, so they come to the library. every break, every lunch, consistently, and we have nice chats. And what was lovely about this particular person was that when they got their mock exam results, and they come in that brown paper envelope. So they
Yeah.
came in to see me, and they wanted me to see them first, to be the first one actually above their parents. So I felt
Oh, that's so lovely.
really honored. It was a great privilege. And of course, I was like, oh, I can't do that. But they were like, no, please, I want you to. So yeah, I opened the envelope. I felt like a proud parent, and
No.
we went through the results, and they were like, "Oh, I'm a bit worried about this," and I explained there's obviously ways to improve grades, and so on and so forth. So that's
Wonderful.
just one example of one student. So I don't know whether you've got any other
So
questions about
that's
that.
really, yeah, that's really interesting because our knowledge of my memory of what the library used to be like was kind of posh, posh, very
Yeah,
quiet zone. You don't speak, you don't do anything apart from reading and staying silent. So to hear that there's all these things going on within the library is quite interesting about how the
yeah.
library has evolved into a multifunctional place.
It is now. Yeah, very different.
And this, like you said, was not part of your regular job description.
No, not at all. But I absolutely love it. It's actually the highlight of my day. The students coming in and talking to me. It's so nice that they want to come in, and I'm a trusted adult. I'm not judgmental. They haven't got that classroom environment. They can come in and relax and be themselves. And sometimes, I get unexpected students, and I've got the cool kids who come in, and they kind of saunter up to me like this, and they go, "Miss," and we have a nice little chat. And I said, and they come in when they shouldn't be in the library, but they should be walking. So I'll say, "So, where should you be? And have you gone walkabout?" They look at me like, "Yes." So that's quite funny. And I say, "Well, I think that you need to get back to your lesson. It's really important." So things like that. And after a couple of minutes, they say, "Okay, we're going back." So I'll send to the teacher a quick email to say, "Oh, they're on their way again." But it's quite nice that I'm their first port of call,
That
even with the
is
cool kids.
So that's so interesting, Emma, because like I said, I never knew that librarians do all these other things and support children at school and children with a range of difficulties, the well-being. And actually, when we were having our conversation about this, it just dawned on me that, librarians play a very key role then, which we are not harnessing or being aware of. And the reason I'm saying this is obviously in my job as a pediatrician, neurodevelopmental pediatrician, we get referred children with difficulties. A lot of this is when parents have gone to the GPs to ask for a referral. But because the pathways usually requires that the schools send us information to support that referral, there are times when we have had to reject referrals because the pathway is such that if the child is not showing the similar difficulties at school, then that problem is not present in settings outside home. So we usually send questionnaires to schools to complete, which they send to us to review as well as parents' information. But if the schools do not show difficulties that support that, then those referrals most times are declined, and therefore that child does not get a leg through the door, and the child most times will not get the regular assessments because it's been felt that the child is fine at school. So from what we're talking about, there are children who you would be seeing a lot more of their differences, and you've talked about children who want to come in there because they're anxious and they don't want to
Yeah.
be in the big playground. There are children who, because of well-being purposes, they want to come in there. There are children who feel they can speak to you as a trusted adult. They might be anxious speaking to other people. So I'm getting, all the different things you're doing to support children, and none of this actually shows up on the information that we gather from school. And that was one of the things that made me so interested and keen on finding out whether this was something that was just relating to Wushu schools or this was something that was actually seen in other places as well. And I think following our discussion, you decided to find out more. Could you
I
tell us a bit more about what happened after that discussion, that conversation?
Yes, it absolutely snowballed from there. So I put a survey together very quickly, and I just wanted to know what is going on in school libraries. What role do secondary school librarians play in students' well-being and pastoral care? So I didn't know how it would go. And so I thought, right, okay, I've got the questionnaire together. And where do I start? Initially, I started on a Facebook group. I posted the questionnaire there and explaining what we were doing. And I absolutely did not anticipate the number of responses I got. Within 48 hours, I had 51 responses, which is
Wow.
just phenomenal. And I was blown away. I've got so much data. I've
Wow.
got all the quantitative data, but all the qualitative data is just so much. I can't even keep track of it now.
Wow.
But what I'm really interested in seeing is that there's a pattern. The pattern was forming quite quickly about the role that librarians play in students' lives. And consistently across the board, it's all about the library being a safe space, a place for anxious students to come, those with ASD, ADHD, they all want to be there. They have in the librarian a trusted adult. And like as I said before, there's this non-judgmental environment. It's comfortable. They can do what they want. They can relax or they can chat to friends and just be themselves. We also, I know that our library has colouring in activities and word searches. And then I saw in the surveys, other people have that in their libraries as well.
Wow.
And these things are also utilized consistently. So I'm thinking, okay, it's crazy, really. This is clearly going on in many, many other libraries. I'm just thinking what else came up. So actually, a lot of libraries have more comfy spaces. We don't. Um, some libraries I've noticed have like bean bags or sofas that the kids can sit down on. So it's a bit more like being at home. And in these libraries, it works pretty well. I know the setup that we have in our library, it wouldn't work, but there are other libraries where it does, which is fabulous. So yeah, the research is ongoing. But as I said, there's definitely a pattern and neurodiverse students are massively supported more than I could ever imagined, really. And the benefits have been huge for them, as well as other students. Obviously, it's not just
Yeah, that's so interesting because I think the responses that you've gotten is just phenomenal.
I know, I can't
It's
believe it.
phenomenal, I must tell you. We
The
struggle
librarians
when
are on it.
yeah, I was totally impressed. And we struggle to get responses when we're doing medical surveys. And I can tell you, in no way do we get anything near those numbers at all, even after several months of putting out this survey. So it just shows that I think what that tells me is that, librarians are caring. They
Yeah,
want what's best for the children. They're ready to help. And I can see that from the responses, they're doing so many things to support children with neurodiversity, with differences. And a lot of this does not actually really come out about how much support is available within the library services within schools. And I think this is one of the reasons that I felt that this needs to be highlighted because I feel that you're already doing so much in the school in terms of providing support and almost like some interventions,
yeah.
for the children. But I'm not sure how much of this is being recognized or people are being made aware of this. And one question I wanted to ask is, are you usually made aware of which children have neurodiversity when they visit the library? How do you know? Do you get any information beforehand?
Generally, no. So what I have to do is literally think on my feet. So if a student approaches me, it's all about body language, how they talk to me, and I have to think, okay, how do I interact with this person? Because I can't necessarily find out very quickly whether there are any issues or neurodiversity. So I have to kind of work it out for myself and just talk to them, see how I can help them and go from there. What I do after that, when they've left, is I go on our system and then I look them up and see if there's anything that I should know about. Sometimes there is, sometimes there isn't, but it would be very, very handy to know more because then how to deal with the situation and what, if any, triggers there might be. You don't know what's going on, maybe at home, because we do have a fair number of students who are neurodiverse, but they also have a lot going on at home as well. And those students I interact with in the library, I've had to sort of initiate conversations myself to ask the questions about, what's going on. I need to know a bit more so that I don't make any mistakes in my interactions.
So it would have been helpful to actually,
Yes, yeah,
you know,
definitely. But I think as librarians, we are not recognized as such, as being able to help. I know there was one comment in the survey saying we are sort of kind of used as receptionists, and that kind of, I suppose, idea that all we do is act as receptionists or put books on shelves, and that's all we do. And
yes.
therefore, what's the point in letting librarians know about students? It's not really that important. That's how it's seen.
Well, we can see how very important it is. And
Yeah,
everything you're saying is such an eye opener for me as a clinician who's been practicing over 20 years as a neurodevelopmental pediatrician, and to actually hear all the things you said, it was really eye opening for me. And that's when I thought to
yeah,
myself, actually, we as clinicians need to understand the broader functioning of the school because we always say, okay, we get the information from the teacher and the parents, but we, because of our perception of what librarians do, never ever thought that, librarians would be able to be a key part of providing information that would be helpful for children who haven't
yeah.
had a diagnosis as
Yeah,
well.
you'd be
So,
surprised what we hear. I walk around the library and I hear things and I sort of take notes, take mental notes and thinking, okay, because sometimes, there are friendship issues and students come in quite upset sometimes. So it's a good idea, to keep an ear out, see what's going on, what's happened. And then I can then actually pass that information on to pastoral care, and we have counsellors in the school. So it's quite handy. I might, drop one of the counsellors a line and say, look, I think so and so is having some issues today. Please, could you come and speak to them? So, yeah, we're actually quite handy in the library.
very handy,
Putting those
getting, yeah,
and they get dealt with before they escalate.
absolutely.
That's really important.
And that's
Um,
the whole essence of this because it's that early intervention.
yeah.
Librarians are actually very key in that early intervention before things escalate at school. Do you get involved with providing information when this is required? Do you ever get asked about what the child is like as part of that information gathering process?
No, we don't actually. It is a shame, but I think it's still the idea is that as librarians, it's not our job to get involved with that kind of thing. And I don't think that it's realized sometimes how often we see these children. And it is, like I said before, it's consistent at break, at lunch, um, maybe after school sometimes, or before school. So we actually do see these children and we do interact with them quite a lot, and we see how they are from day to day. So maybe one day a student appears to be absolutely fine, and then the next something's happened,
Mm,
and we can see the difference in behavior then. So to seeing them regularly, and I don't think, I'm not saying not all teachers, but sometimes teachers just don't have the time to
yes.
actually spot things.
Yeah.
Quite understandably, they were completely overworked and it's
Yeah.
the classroom environment. I think librarians are perfectly placed actually to see these changes and
Yes.
help. And as I said before, to refer perhaps to counsellors or pastoral care.
I mean, that's really great because sometimes children might bottle up things. You've talked about children coming who are really anxious and all
Yes,
that.
please. I
Yeah.
have a few students with acute anxiety. I have one student who comes in who is pretty young, and they have such acute anxiety that they can't do anything. They can't go into lessons at all. And sometimes they need some time out anyway. So they will come and sit in the library. And the only thing that they like doing are word searches. And so we've connected over that, and we have a bit of a laugh. And the child also likes opposite day, so we do opposite day. Everything's opposite, and we love it because I'm always on purpose slipping up and making mistakes. So yes is no, no is yes, and he absolutely loves it. And I found having a laugh, having a bit of banter has really helped. Communication is key. And also, to add to that, kindness is key. Warmth and kindness consistently is so important.
Yeah.
And when I first got to know this child, they were quite withdrawn, didn't really want to interact, perhaps came across as a bit rude. But time has passed by now, and we're laughing together. And when they come in, then yeah, they have a really good time.
That's just amazing story because I see so many anxious young people who have refused to come into school.
Yeah,
Some of them don't come into school and haven't been to school for a while, and to see that there are resources that can be incorporated into part of the plan to support that young person at school. And I think what you've just told me for the example of the young person you're supporting is great because you have actually studied, tried different things to engage the young person. And some
yeah,
of these things are difficult to do within a class of 30,
definitely.
where so many things are going on at the same time. And, the teacher is trying to teach and, young people, it's quite difficult. I just feel with what I've been hearing from you and what we've been discussing so far, I just wonder how we miss this, how we actually, because I just think it's such a big miss that we haven't really, the one place that young people, children will go into within the school is actually also going to the library. Why haven't we thought about having information from that setting, from the library,
Yeah,
which is another place
definitely.
the child spends time in? How come we've just been focused on just getting information from the teachers that we haven't thought about where else could the child be going to? Can we get information from other sources? And I think for me, this is the eye opener from the surveys, from our discussions, and from what we've been talking about in the podcast is how valuable librarians are in the well-being of the child because there's a total well-being, whether the child is neurotypical or whether the child is neurodiverse. Well-being is so key for the child that if these days we see so many children with emotional and mental health challenges that impacts on their accessing learning at school, accessing the school itself, that one place that, we can look into and explore and support because
Yeah.
I know it is not an easy task for you to do all that support for the young people. So just coming back to the support you give, do you, because obviously you're seeing children with diverse presentations, diverse
Yeah.
conditions. Have you had any training or professional development to help you in supporting children with well-being issues or neurodiversity?
I haven't, not at all. So, in my job, I go on instinct always, and I like to think that it's good. I feel very confident in what I do, but I don't have the training. And I think training is not provided because as I said before, we're not seen as librarians as being important or having an important role in a student's well-being. I think the library's seen purely as for borrowing books and for studying and playing games and colouring in. And that's it. And that's probably why training has not been offered because it's not seen as being necessary or important for us as librarians. I think that's across the board.
And was that something that you picked up from the survey as well?
Yes.
Interesting.
Interestingly, though, a third of people who were surveyed have had training, but I don't know to what extent that
Yeah.
is. There was only one respondent who had labelled the training, and it was, I think, level 5 mental health training. I don't know you probably know more than I do about that, but it was quite an advanced qualification in mental health training. And that was just one person.
So it's possible that person was occupying a different role within the school. It's also possible.
Yes, yeah. They didn't say, but it was definitely quite an advanced qualification. And I don't know to what extent the others had had training, what that looked like exactly, but 2/3 had not had any training at all. So exactly in the same position as me. I think a few people were unsure because I think that where that stems from is on the inset days, it sort of dipped in and out of
Yeah.
anything to do with mental health.
Yeah.
So my recent inset day had a bit, I suppose, informal training, not proper training. It was lasted about an hour. It was a few slides, which was fantastic. So we could have some insight, but it wasn't a formal training or a qualification at all. But it would be nice to do something properly.
Yes, I think that training for librarians it would be so important because it goes into the support that is being given to the young children and young people, whatever space they're in. And if they're coming into the library space, it would be really good to optimize the
Yeah.
kind of support that they have. And are you aware of any documents or policies that shape how the library supports neurodivergent learners?
No. I'm actually currently putting a library policy together because there wasn't one put in place when I started. It's quite a big job, but now that you mention it, I can consider inserting it in to the
I think
policy.
it would be really good because
But
I
how that
think,
would look, I don't know. I'll need to talk to you to
yeah,
find out more as to, how I could word it. But it's
yeah.
certainly something to consider. Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Emma. That is just mind-blowing discussions and revelations for me as a clinician. And just to even hear that a lot of people who completed the survey actually felt the same. So it's not just
Exactly.
something
Yeah.
that's happening in just one part. It is actually happening in many parts. So when you look at, and I think one of the interesting things that you said was the libraries are quite different um in the way that things are done and the way that the environment is as well. You've talked about that.
Yeah.
So have you been able to make any adjustments in your library to just accommodate for this?
Well, due to the setup, it's very difficult. So we have the computer area and what I would call sort of the classroom area where we have lessons and the books. It's all open plan. So it's
Yeah.
very difficult to have any sort of very quiet spaces.
Mm,
So the library are never really quiet. There's always a bit of noise that it's just difficult to control. However, students who are neurodiverse don't seem to be bothered by it. And I think because it's definitely, without doubt, quieter than being outside in a corridor, playground, or the canteen,
mm,
volume is definitely a lot lower. And I think it's just a nice space to
mm,
be. So it doesn't seem to have, to what I've noticed, that much of an
mm.
impact on them. However, we have got a spare room going at the moment, just off the library. And I'm thinking it would be lovely to create a nice space there with maybe a sofa and a chair, bean bags, like a comfortable space.
Yeah.
Students can come not just maybe at break or lunch, but maybe if they're feeling overwhelmed during lesson time, or they
Yeah.
just come and relax there and maybe pick
Yeah.
up a book or do a puzzle, something like that, to have that space.
Yeah.
So that's what I would like, and I'm hoping it will happen.
Great. So, have you experienced barriers in your role regarding supporting children with neurodiversity?
I think we've said that, well, the main one is really not being given enough information.
Mm,
So that's what's difficult. It's always if it it's good if I am given the information and I can prepare myself a bit,
mm,
but being put on the spot is quite hard because I don't know whether I'm going to say the wrong thing or
yeah,
not. So it's always about treading carefully, and I always have done, and there's never been a problem. But it would be nice just to have that extra bit of background. If I
yeah,
could spend, 5-10 minutes for somebody and then they can explain everything. It's not that that happens all the time, but I tend either not to get any information or just a few snippets.
yeah,
And it'd be nice to have the bigger picture and to know more. But usually, after the students left the library, I have a quick look
yeah,
to see what, as I said, what issues there are. But it would
yeah.
be lovely to have more information. So it is generally a
But
case of us thinking on our feet.
yeah. What of staffing? Do you have enough? Do you think, in comparison with the volume that comes in or the number of children? Because obviously, if you've got a child who is quite distressed and all that, and you're having children doing different things elsewhere, I can imagine that might be a very difficult.
Yes, it is. It's extremely challenging. Break and lunch is just me. So I love spending time with students and I love to talk to them and listen to them, particularly my regulars. But if I've got a behavioral management issue going on across the other side of the library, it's
Mm,
difficult to sort of to stay talking to that student. I don't want to leave them because, I want to be with them, want to be compassionate and listen to them, but equally, if there's a behavioural issue escalating across the library, I've got to deal with that as well. So it's difficult to be in different places. I also run the school shop, stationery shop, so I might have to go there. So from a body point of view, we need more bodies in the library.
yeah. Definitely, with the way things have changed in the way your role is, you definitely need more staff to support the
Definitely.
children. Because in the changing landscape, we're having more children at school with needs compared to several years ago. So that needs to be recognized in the level of staffing needed within the libraries.
Oh, definitely. Maybe you can advocate for us.
I mean, definitely, because with what we've been talking about, you are quite key in that school life of the child, but it's
Yeah,
also making the child feel like wanting to come to school. Many children and young people don't want to come to school because
yeah,
they're anxious. They don't feel they're being
absolutely.
supported. They don't sometimes feel that anybody listens to them. So to actually hear the things that you're saying and doing is the kind of thing some of the children really want to get for them to
Yes.
come into school. So you've definitely had some success stories with
Yes,
children you supported, and
definitely.
I think it sounds, just listening to you, I think that's one of the things that you enjoy about your work,
Well,
isn't
I
it?
absolutely love it. It's just the best. So satisfying when you can see a change in somebody. It's fantastic. I'm just trying to think. I was thinking last year of a student I had in who had had a very, very difficult home life. That I did know about. It was very bad. And the student with has also had ADHD, ASD, so there's a lot going on, and also some connected with that, some anger management issues. But so they spent quite a bit of time in the library with me. And whenever they came in the morning, I was always very happy, smiley, asked them how they were and how things were going. And we'd have little chats throughout the day and always have sweets in my drawer. And we'd have a little snack as well. And it feels more homely that way. And actually, the whole demeanor changed from being, I suppose, a bit aggressive to absolute opposite and smiley when they saw me. I think it makes such a difference. I think from what students have said to me, they don't expect people to greet them warmly when they come into library and smile. I think they expect a librarian to be a bit serious. But having that smiley and happy demeanor is just, yeah, it's wonderful to see. So it was all
Right.
about connecting with this person, and they ended up doing very well indeed.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So what do you think, just looking at yourself and your journey, and what would you say have been really key for you that you feel are the things that have really helped in seeing children achieve no matter what the background? What's the advice that you will give others in terms of helping the young people go through that? Because many young people find school really, really difficult.
Absolutely. I did. I was actually a school refuser myself, suffering with acute anxiety. And it is really hard. And I think that's why I have a lot of empathy for these children. I really understand how difficult things can be. And I think my advice would be just to listen. That's all you have to do. Listen and be kind. And I generally mean that kindness and smiling and be happy consistently every time you see that young person. Well, it needs to be.
Yeah.
It's the listening and the empathy, yeah, and kindness. Yeah.
That's so true, because it's interesting. A lot of young people, when they come to the clinic, one of the things they say is that people don't understand me. That's one of the things they commonly say when you ask them how school is. It's like, the teachers don't understand me. This person doesn't understand me. And when you engage with young people, you find that there's usually a reason for them
Yes.
doing whatever they're doing. And some of it comes out as anger and rebellion. But when you sit down and listen to them, you sometimes can understand why that behavior has happened.
Yeah.
And that's why they feel that they're not being listened to when they have those difficulties. So I think it's so important. It's just a big learning point for everyone. And I feel that in our conversations, them being in that atmosphere where they feel listened to, and they can feel that in a safe place to talk, helps them to engage. Because I imagine
Absolutely.
initially it's not easy. There's sometimes gauging whether to trust or not to trust. Is that something you
Oh, yes. With this particular student who I mentioned, trust, massive, massive issue due to their background, which was very sad to see. But over time, trust between us was built, and we spent many hours talking, and it was just lovely to see. But the relationship does take a very long time with certain students, quite understandably. And
Yeah,
all it takes is a listening ear and
yeah.
building up those relationships.
Yeah. I mean, look at your story.
Yeah.
You told us you went to 11 schools, you
Yes.
were a school refuser. Who would ever believe that? You've gone on to do such great things, you know.
Well, thank
And
you.
what was the reason behind school refusal for you? Would you?
It's acute anxiety. I always felt very, very embarrassed going to school, felt very awkward amongst other students. I felt very nervous if a teacher asked me a question. So it was that, all those things, and some bullying as well. It made it very, very difficult. But I think nowadays there's more in place for students compared to when I was young. A lot more. It was very much dismissed. And when I was young, it was a difficult time then. But I did come through it, although, yeah, it is very unsettling doing all that. I mean, I also, in between, traveled quite a bit with my parents. I lived in the Netherlands and US and the UK. I came to the UK as a teenager. So it was different countries, different schools, different languages. It was a whole lot. So, in a way, it actually taught me to adapt and be resilient, but it was also very unsettling
Yes,
and
it
made
must
me very
be.
anxious. Yeah,
Because each time you have to start a new school, it's a different
yeah,
process, isn't it? And I
exactly.
know, Emma, you also speak different languages. So you want to know about other cultures, other people.
Yeah.
And I think that has also been a very positive point for you in engaging with others, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I speak quite a few languages, including, well, obviously Dutch, German, modern Greek, some French, Spanish, and last year I started learning Arabic as another one. So I love
Fan-
languages, love
Fantastic.
cultures, and it has actually really paid off because when we've had EAL students come to the school, I can often speak a bit the language. I speak a bit of Russian. So when we've had Russian students, I speak to them a bit. We also have a student, and he was quite interesting actually. So I was asking him not to do something one day, and he didn't listen. So I spoke to him, used a couple of words, and that was it. He stopped doing what he wasn't meant to be doing, had a little chuckle, and that was it. So since that point, he doesn't do what he wasn't meant to be doing.
And that's amazing, breaking barriers using other
Yeah.
means, and that's just wonderful.
Yeah. So now we have a lot of laughs together. And sometimes all it takes is me rolling my eyes, nothing else, and it all stops.
Fantastic, fantastic. Wow. It's been a wonderful conversation, and I just wish I could go on and on, but
Yeah.
obviously this is time limited. So the last question is, if what changes would you like to see regarding Liberians' involvement in supporting neurodiverse children at school? So if you had to come up with a wish list for things to change, what would you like to see?
I think we need to be
Okay,
I think
yeah.
librarians, we need to be recognized, fully recognized, as part of a wider support network. I think that would be really important for neurodiverse students, but also other students, neurotypical students. I think for everybody, it would be so much more important that we're really recognized and not sort of classed as receptionists or bookshelvers. But obviously, we need training, we need proper training in whatever form that would take. Inyang, you would know better than me what that would and should look like. To work more closely with the SEND department, I think that would be really important. But it's a case of time, resources to do that. But I suppose in an ideal world, that would be great. It would be great to have students being able to come in to like that separate space to regulate themselves. And I'm hoping that's going to happen, but that is one of my ideals. So
Fantastic. But I'm just looking at the things you've talked about, and all these things are doable. Majority of them are doable without having to invest massive resources. It's just a change of mindset and attitude.
yeah, that's right.
Because everything that you've talked about, you're doing those things, but you're not being recognized. And I
Yeah,
think if people look at you, librarians, as a very, very key part of a child's journey at school, and therefore information provided to the librarian from the beginning, they're being included in the well-being and send discussions from the beginning, and then just having that conduit to, it might even be a brief meeting, a chat where you can actually sit down with the pastoral team, with the counseling team, with the teachers, and seeing ways in which you can support the children. I
yeah,
think we'll be able to improve management and well-being at schools. I'm attending a meeting, a conference, which I stumbled into on supporting mental health in schools. And I was looking through, I think because of this and saying, I was looking through all the agenda items. I'm thinking, okay, yes, but where have, again, this does not include looking at the total staff in the school, the librarians and everybody. And I think that this is something that needs to be out there, because I think most people are not aware of how important librarians are and what they're doing to support children
yeah,
already. And like you said, the recognition is not there. You're finding out things by chance, and it's
yeah,
also dependent on the interest and the effort of the librarian to do
yeah.
that, because not everybody that's going to have those interests from the beginning. So I just want to say that this has been quite an eye-opening conversation. And Emma, thank you so much.
Oh, you're
Again,
welcome.
for
Thank you for
sharing your
having me.
journey, because you have had your own personal journey and you relate
Yeah,
very much to this. And, and like, again, you're a testament to uh, the fact that, a child who's not wanting to go to school at a particular time, that's not the end for that child, that
no,
people
it's
can
not.
turn things around,
Yes.
and people need to be listened to and supported, and their lives can be completely turned around.
Yeah.
and made more positive. And you've shared some really good success stories for us.
Yeah.
We are living in a world where there's increasing emotional and mental health challenges. There's high rates of school refusals. And we actually want children and young people to be at school. We don't want them to be at home
Absolutely.
isolated because there's more risk there. We don't want them on the streets wandering around. We want them at school. And so we need to make the school environment very supportive for them. And that is thinking that the school as a whole school system, because librarians are key in early intervention, as we've talked about,
Yeah.
recognizing the children who are vulnerable or at risk, signposting them to services within the school to begin to get that support, the pastoral and counseling team, and then working with the SEND department to look at ways in which they could be supported, working with the SEND team to provide the information that accurately represents the child so that the child can be referred appropriately and the referrals not declined. As I've told you, this is what happens. And we do not know that there are other people who can give a representation of the child. It's been
Yeah.
eye-opening for me in the sense that it's definitely going to change my practice of when I'm requesting for information and it doesn't represent what is really happening. I'm going to again ask for information from professionals who've worked with the child, including librarians. I'm going to stress that in. So for
Yeah.
my little corner, I'm going to change my practice. And I just hope that all the clinicians and every other person realizes the value of librarians in the well-being of the child at school and also providing the resources that librarians need to just improve things. Because just doing the same thing that we've been doing all the time is not going to make the change. So thank you so much, Emma. It's
Oh,
been
you're very
wonderful
welcome.
having you on the podcast. Thank you for the
Thanks so much.
survey.
And
The
I have
mind
tons
blowing
of it.
stats, yeah, from the survey. It's amazing. It's going to be great because I think that needs to be shared with professional groups. And thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Oh,
Thank
thank you,
you.
Inyang.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As we always say, early intervention leads to better outcome, and early intervention can only be achieved by early diagnosis. So thank you for listening into the series today. I know some of the things we've talked about today would probably have generated some questions or need to seek clarification. So I'm happy to take questions, and I'll invite you to send your questions to eim@drtakon.com. Thank you for listening in.